Finally, after a few agonizingly long minutes, the transport slowly began to descend. Reducing the power to the vertical thrusters, the transport came down to a graceful touchdown. Thwump! Shortly afterward, a soft "hees" sounded as the back hatch opened. Meanwhile, a ramp began extending from the floor of the back hatch to the ground with a massive thud. Though this whole process might have lasted a whole 10 seconds to Sara and all the other troopers, it might as well have been 10 hours. From her position, Sara could hear all the actions of the transport, but she could not make out the pilot's face. Ba-dump! Ba-dump! Her heart was racing.
We are totally screwed if that thing shows up now,
Sara thought, gripping her rifle tightly and scanning the area for any motion through her scope. Finally, the transport was ready for loading, and Norman came across the comm line.
Troopers load up, you know your seating.
Sara, being one of the last few to get out of the transport, knew that she was one of the first to load up into the transport. The two troopers before Sara loaded one by one into the transport and went to their assigned seats. Sara then lowered her weapon and made a run from her position into the transport. On her way up the ramp, she moved her rifle from the carrying position to her Y-rack. She then moved to her seat at the back of the transport.
Hurry up!
She thought as the other troopers loaded in, one by one.
That thing could be here any minute.
Kept repeating in her mind. The chatter across the comm line slowly faded from the foremost of her attention until she could no longer hear it.
Come on, come on. That thing is going after transports, and this is just a bigger one than the last.
She thought over and over again. The seconds felt like minutes, and the minutes like hours at this point. Sara powered off her suit and sat down in her seat. She then removed her helmet and straightened her glasses, though they didn't need it. Her field glasses, more like aviator goggles in shape, with a large elastic band which went from the side of the lens to her ear, then splitting into two smaller bands going around her ear to the back of her head, were secure in their location. The two bands parted directions, with one going down towards the base of her skull and other rode higher up and around the back of her head. Both of the bands were securely fastened in place and made indentations in her jet black hair, which was folded up on itself to prevent it getting in the way of quickly putting her helmet on. As she felt along the rim of her glasses, she couldn't help but think about her best course of action should the enemy appear.
First, I would have to get out of the transport. That wouldn't be hard. The hallway would be mostly empty, and I could tuck and roll to avoid the explosion. My suit should be able to give some protection from the fire and shrapnel should the transport explode. But would it be better to engage or run at that point?
Her thoughts were racing through all these scenarios and more, which hadn't even happened. The next trooper loaded in and sat down, then another and another. They kept coming until finally Norman himself loaded in. Norman then came across the comm line.
We are all in. Get us out of here.
Roger that.
The pilot responded. The thrusters of the shuttle came alive with rumble that could be felt all over the transport. The ramp began to pull in, and the doors began to close, all while the transport began lifting off. The transport had only lifted a few feet from the ground before the door closed, and the ramp had pulled all the way into its resting place. A brief moment of total darkness covered the troopers in the back of the transport, followed by the lights coming on with a click. Sara was completely baffled by the events of the day, as was everyone else for that matter. She looked over at Haraldson, who had taken his helmet off as well. Haraldson said to her,
"See, just stick with us and you'll be fine."
Sara couldn't help but feel a bit relieved and even let out a small sigh.
Whew.
The tension left her momentarily, but was then shortly after replaced with a feeling of disappointment.
All that training. We finally get called to active duty only to get our butts kicked. Voss is gone. Huskins is gone. Unit 37 is gone. And we don't even have anything to show for it. We never even got a look at the thing.
She thought as the anger began to show on her face. Tears also began to well up in her eyes, but only she knew they were there, her glasses concealing their presence. Haraldson, who hadn't taken his eyes off her, noticed the expression on her face and said,
Whoa there, Missy. Might as well get that thought out of your head. There is no way we could have known that damn thing could turn invisible. Also, we had no warning that it was targeting transports. Honestly, we are lucky that we were off when it did. Otherwise, we would have just been another number on the KIA board.
Sarah thought about what Haraldson had said for a minute. Then she asked,
If it was going for the transports, then why didn't it go after this carrier? Isn't it just a bigger transport?
Haraldson stroked his short beard and replied,
You have a good point there, Missy, but only the ghost knows the answer to that one. As best I can tell, this ghost is leaps and bounds beyond anything we have ever seen before, in both smarts and raw power. I think it is best that we just be happy that we weren't one of the casualties. Regroup and live to fight another day.
Still, I want another crack at that damn thing. One where it doesn't get the jump on us.
Sarah said as she raised her head and slammed her fists on her knees.
Haha, I'm sure you will get your chance.
Haraldson laughed, impressed by her resolve.
I'll be damned. Girl has more spirit than I gave her credit for.
He thought, a smirk starting to creep across his face. There's been much debate throughout history about man versus machine when it comes to warfare. While the machine and automation have taken over much of the everyday affairs, such as cab driving, house cleaning, and even money transactions, it is still believed by many that only man can handle the most complex of situations such as warfare or ghosts. On the other hand, many also feel that having machines handle the conflicts would greatly reduce the risk to human lives. Excerpt from the Pan American Press, January 12, 2177.